there's this clip going around of this interview about the Snow White movie. Last week we talked about um the film, and we talked about the dwarves and how woke that is in particular. They decided after like Peter Dinklage spoke up. He was an actor who was in Elf and Game of Thrones. He thought it was backwards or backwoods or whatever to have dwarves for some reason, even though they're very heroic in the film. They're very much the heroes of the story, and it's about them and Snow White. It's about them more than like the actual prince. So they decided to only cast one dwarf, and the rest are average sized people, I guess, and one's actually a woman, and they're different ethnicities and so on. So I have a video about it. Snow White and the seven Seattle encampment hobos, I think is what it's called, the video, when I talk about it. So it's obviously woke. This particular conversation is being talked about, this interview, for good reason.
You said you were bringing a modern edge to it on stage. What do you mean by that?
I just mean that it's no longer 1937, and we absolutely wrote a Snow White that
she's not going to be saved by the prince.
She's not going to be saved by the prince, and she's not going to be dreaming about true love. She's dreaming about becoming the leader she knows she can be, and the leader that her late father told her that she could be if she was fearless, fair, brave, and true. And so it's just a really incredible story for, I think, young people everywhere to see themselves in.
Snow White is running for president.
I'm launching my campaign.
So Rachel Zegler is the actress who's playing Snow White. She's obviously not white. That was a little bit of a conversation. Not hasn't been as huge. I mean, when that first was announced, it was a bigger conversation. It hasn't been anywhere as huge, I think, as like Ariel being played by Halle Bailey, especially once the pictures came out and her hair wasn't the right shade of red. But obviously she's not as white as Snow. She is kind of a little pale, fair skin, but not quite what we had probably had in mind. But I think the dwarf thing is a way bigger deal. But this idea of it's not 1937, we don't need a prince to save us, is so silly. And I'm not saying you dream of someone saving, which a lot of people dream of their circumstances changing and evolving into some kind of like marriage and family is really like the point of so much of our society. I know there's some people who never want to get married and don't want a relationship, whatever, and that's it is what it is. But you do what you feel is right for you. But we literally need that to go on. And it's something that so many people crave, need, desire. And even women who are so certain that they don't want it, they get a little older and they're like, oh, did I miss my shot? Because now I've had my career and I've done this and I'm in my later 30s, and I'm wondering if it's possible, if it's gonna happen, or if you're gonna be a spinster. So we prioritize a lot of the wrong things in life. And I think it's really important when you think of the Snow White film. I went back earlier and watched a few clips. It's been a long time since I've seen the film, like in its entirety. But the prince was dreaming of her too. It's not just in these films that these women want companionship, that they want marriage, that they want a different life, that they want their own family. These men want it too. And I think that's important. And I think that that's good. Like she was, her evil stepmother had her dressed in rags or whatever. She was jealous of her. She forced her to be a servant, just to clean up and other stuff like that. And she was at a wishing well singing about her true love. Like, she's hoping that she meet her true love that day. And then he heard her singing, and then he came up on her, and she got a little startled, and she went inside, and he just, sang to her while she's on the balcony, and then she starts swooning. And, so that's their little romance. And I don't think he comes back in the film again until the very end. Once, she was in the glass coffin and he had heard about the beautiful maiden. He was looking for her, searching for her. And then he eventually found her, and he was sad to see her on a coffin in a coffin, and he just kissed her real quick. Like people are like, oh, it's creepy. I mean, it's weird, but I hadn't seen it in a long time. It was like, you know, and over, and he didn't expect her to wake up. He just, you know, got down and knelt down, was sad, and then she like immediately woke up and was they happy, and they hugged, and she said goodbye to the dwarves and kissed them all on the forehead and stuff. They got on the horse and they rode off into the sunset together, start their new lives together. But again, she wasn't the only one dreaming of romance and a new life. He was too. He was too. There's a film called Austenland. So there's this place that people would go to. They pay for an experience. It was like a Jane Austen experience. So they go on this, you know, this house and this land and stuff, where it's like everybody was dressing like you know, that era clothing, and they would, you know, use that sort of, you know, old time speech, and they'd have to apply by those rules. They couldn't have modern technology. They were just immersed in that experience. And so people would pay to have like a romance encounter. And so the main character Jane, erstwhile, she she was obsessed with Jane Austen and Pride and Prejudice and Mr. Darcy. And so she paid with what money she had, and it was only enough for the copper package. So everybody treated her very poorly because she was like the poor girl, you know, hanging with the elites. And so she had a friend who was who she met there, who was not the brightest chick, but she's very sweet and also very loaded. So they're just kind of like, you know what, make your own story. So she kind of gave herself like a upgrade, you know, with her wardrobe and whatever, and was like, I'm going to get myself a happy ending. And so there was a guy there, Mr. Nobley, and who was like supposed to be the Mr. Darcy type character. And so you know, she went back and forth with him, and there was another guy too. And so, sorry to spoil the movie, I'm not going to say the whole thing, but I brought it up to mention the ending. And so this ending is important to the point that I'm making, bringing up the Snow White stuff. She ends up going back home and is like, I don't need to live in a fantasy. She cleans out a lot of her stuff and is kind of like, because she was obsessed. So Mr. Nobley, Henry Nobley, comes to her door, and then she's just kind of like, what are you doing here? So he explains that he's actually fallen in love with her, you know, and so they begin to like kiss and stuff. And she's like, wait a second. She's like, this is a fantasy.
No, see, people don't do this. I mean, this is my fantasy. This is what...
Will you stop to consider that you might have this all backward? Jane, you are my fantasy.
So girls have it in this head, like, oh, you dream about this guy, you dream about this guy. But it's not like men don't desire companionship. It's not like men don't want a woman who is kind, compassionate, and nurturing. Now, all of this, Snow White isn't the type of girl who like, let's go get a sword and, you know, save the kingdom. There's been different kind of stories that have had a different spin, like Snow White and the Huntsman, for example. And like, she literally fought the queen, the evil queen. There's Once Upon a Time, you know, Snow White was the bandit, and then she would fight and stuff with the dwarves. You know, I watched that entire series. But so there's people who definitely do different takes. But the Walt Disney animated version of Snow White, she is a child. You know, younger than the actress who's portraying her for certain. And so you had this stepmother who was jealous of this young woman, that she's pretty, that she, you know, that you know, people love her or whatever. She just couldn't take it, so she treated her like garbage. She wanted her dead and out of the picture because she this is someone who just is envious of the next generation and just can't take it. She just can't take it, so she tries to destroy it. And the Huntsman, you know, helped her. Adults should help children not be killed. She goes to the dwarf's place, and she thinks kids live there or whatever. So they come in, and she's like, "Oh my gosh, you're little men!" And the kindness that she just spreads to these dwarves, changed their lives. Like Grumpy was like, "I was a woman. You get infected," and they just had this. He just had this weird perception. Like he called her particular name. They're like, "What does that mean?" He's like, "I don't know, but I don't want to catch it." So they had these particular perceptions, and she just brought joy to their lives and discipline to their lives. Like she made him like I'm cooking dinner, go clean up. Go wash up, your hands are filthy, you were working in the mines, like get it together. And she brought meaning to them in a way that they were unaware that they were even missing something to begin with. And that's the power of women in a man's life. And it seems like we just want to reject that, to be a girl boss. And there's nothing wrong with going out there and getting a bag, but but what is it for? What is it for? Like men going out there getting their careers and all that kind of stuff. What is it for? Isn't it to build a life with someone, to forge a family so you can continue on with civilization? So this dissing of what came before, like it wasn't good enough, like we should just be revolted and like, oh, it was so 1937, which by the way, the animation, everything probably blew their minds back then. And Walt Disney loved Snow White. He was always trying to kind of recapture that magic of that film. He loved it so much. And anyway, when the witch went, when she found out she was alive, she went to go. She changed herself. She was so desperate to be the prettiest one, and ended up like ruining her, made herself look ugly, brought that ugliness to the surface to take out, that person. People think these stories are so like simple, but there's so much complexity when you analyze different lessons or whatever. But so she goes out there to kill her, and she the poison apple, etc. And then the dwarves like take her down. They hunt her down with their slingshots. I said it was pickaxes the other day, but maybe they should use pickaxe in the new movie. But they had like slingshots or whatever, and they ran her up a mountain, and the lightning struck, and she fell to her death. And then they had the funeral scene and stuff. Because they built a glass coffin because they just couldn't bear the thought of putting her in the ground. They couldn't bear it. And of course, in the prince stuff comes, but she just sowed kindness and sweetness into their lives and profoundly changed them for the better. And I've mentioned this before. I'll mention this again. It was the dwarves who were the heroes of the story. It wasn't really the prince. I mean, he came in and did the true love's kiss thing, and she woke up. So that was great and everything. But the ones who, built a little home for her, and they didn't build it, but I mean that metaphorically and emotionally. And when she was in danger, when she, the witch tried to take her out, they're the ones who went to war for her, and they just sobbed when they thought she was dead. Stuff profoundly changed their lives for the better, and that's the power of a woman. That's the power of a woman. And I'm not saying I don't like I dislike these new takes, but I just don't like them having such disgust for what came before them. And this idea again that oh, we don't need a man to save us, so much that you want to change plot. Just make a new movie at that point. If there's so much about it that you disliked, you didn't like that they were the dwarves, you didn't like that she was white, you didn't like that the prince saved her from true love with true love's kiss or whatever, which is a pretty prominent thing in the story. Like even Once Upon a Time, Snow and Charming, they saved each other a lot, but she still needed that kiss from Charming to get her out the glass coffin. So if I don't know what they're gonna do, but them bragging about not needing the prince or whatever, he was like literally in 2 scenes in the whole what the heck is he gonna do for the rest of them? Also in the Little Mermaid film, in the animated version, Eric stabs Ursula with his ship, and that's how she dies after she becomes like a giant kraken. In the movie, Ariel steers the ship herself, quite the accomplishment for a non-sailor, I suppose, right into Ursula, and so she kills her herself. And there's some people who like that twist. I didn't like that twist. I mean, full disclosure, I did not go to the theater to see that film. I did see that clip, And I think it's important in the film that Eric did to kill her because first of all, her dad is so concerned about the human world, not a fan or whatever, and he got to see the links that this human was willing to go to save this woman that he loved. Because she's like, Daddy, I love me. He's like, oh, you are a crazy person. And then it became apparent that they had strong feelings. Now, I particularly think it's important because he was just about to marry a whole nother woman. Like he was under a spell. I was just like, here's some redemption, sir. Go grab your spear, your harpoon or whatever, and go to battle. But Ariel not needing him in the end, or him being like just some accessory, like the kin to Barbie or whatever. I didn't see that movie, and I don't think I'm gonna go hate watch it or pay to see it. So you know, if you want to watch commentary on it, there's a ton of different people doing commentary on it. But that's kind of the idea of like, you know, you don't need the men in your lives. And I think men are great, and I think men and women are very complementary toward each other, and what they bring out in each other, or what they're capable of bringing out in each other, is pretty profound. And again, you need those relationships to be able to create the world that we live in. Men and women building families, they really civilize men in a pretty profound way. And children civilize women in a pretty profound way as well. Nothing will grow you up like, you know, having another little human being to take care of and to think about them and etc. And this idea like, oh, they're dreaming of their princess. Well, it's important when you're a princess about who you're going to marry, how those kingdoms are going to align, the interest of your kingdom, you know, wars and or going to war, not going to war, may having an heir that will rule on as well. So these aren't small things, you know. Marriage really used to be considered as a career all in itself, especially like ancient Near East. When you look at Bible days and stuff, it wasn't just I like you. It's like this is a career, and we're building civilization. So I just don't like their attitudes at all. I don't. And just go build something else. Go write something else. Go write something else. You don't have to take what's come before and twist it into all kinds of different ways. You don't have to do that.
Thank you for watching my video. Make sure you go to blacktnews.com and check out different articles, different videos, and also check out our merchandise. If you like what I do, you can also support the website on the donate page. Make sure you hit that subscribe button and also that notification bell. God bless.